When you open the web map, you may notice that some of the symbology has changed. This is because the web map can't support the donut effect that we had in the ArcGIS Pro software. So the first thing we're going to do is change some of the symbology for these different polygons. The way we do that is by going to the zone in the contents pane here, going along to this symbol here with all the different shapes on it and change its style. Click on Options, go to Symbols, and let's change this to a green. We can change the transparency to 50%. OK, done. Now let's do the same for Zone 2 and Zone 3. Done. And Zone 3. Make this orange. OK, done. There we go. Let's also add a bookmark. A bookmark saves your current extent so you can navigate back to it whenever you want. Let's call it CZ. Click Enter. Click X. OK. Bookmarks. CZ. Do you see how it brought me back? Now, let's save this. Saving map to my content. So let's go to Content and access the web map by clicking on it. We want to open this web map up in ArcGIS Online Pro software. So open in ArcGIS Desktop. We could open it in ArcMap, but we'll open it in Arc Pro. Click on that, and it downloads a little file here that if I click on, it'll open it up into Arc Pro. So the web map is now opening in Arc Pro. If we go to the catalog page here, once the map is loaded, we can click the drop-down menu and right-click the map and open it to view it. The contents of the map are added to the contents pane. Notice in the catalog, next to the map itself, there's a symbol for map, which we usually have. But there's a little blue chain there as well. This signifies that it's connected to Arc Online. If you notice, the symbology has been updated to what we changed on the map viewer in Arc Online. And let's navigate away from Chester Zoo. We've also got the bookmark we made as well. If I click on that, it brings me back to this extent. Now, let's do this again. Except before we do, let's go on to Edit and Create. We want to create a new feature point. Call it an animal. Select a point. In fact, let's call it a parking point. Select a point here. And on the Edits tab in the ribbon, we can go to Selection and click on Attributes. We can change the name to Car Park 4. Enter, Enter, Enter. So, now we've updated this attribute with some attribute information, this point feature. We can click Exit on this Attributes table and on this Create Features table. Now let's go to the online map viewer. This is the web map overview page. If we open the web map viewer, one thing I don't like about the symbology on this map is that the orange is making it hard to see the pathways which are also marked as orange. So let's change the symbology for zone 3 from orange to blue. Let's also add another bookmark called Fields. Save the map again, saving to map to my content. Now let's open up the ArcGIS Pro software. Notice it's still orange. Before we can change its symbology from what we updated it on the online map, we have to go up into the catalog page, highlight the map, right-click it, and click on this option called Update, which is only available when your map is linked to the Arc Online service. So update. Do you want to update the current map? Yes, I do. Once the map is updated, you'll notice the blue is here. If we go to map, we can select bookmarks, and the new bookmark we created, fields, is also here. So it's not letting me access my bookmarks here. The way to resolve this is to close the map view and open it once again. Bookmarks, fields, and now it brings me to this fields bookmark here. Notice also that the point we created before, if I click on the select pane here, I can select this point by drawing a box around it. And I can check its attributes by clicking on the attributes table. Car Park 4, that's the one we created before we updated the features. And so bear in mind that features do not get updated, or rather, things you create in Arc Pro won't be overwritten or removed when you update features, unless that feature is one that you've updated from the online and it's updating the feature in Arc Pro, then it will be overwritten. Or removed if you decide to remove a feature. We can now close the Arc Pro as I'm finished showing you what I wanted to show you. We don't need to save it, but under normal circumstances I would recommend saving all of your projects onto a local disk, just so you have a backup. So when we go back into the web map viewer, notice also that since I updated the map, the points that I added in Arc Online Pro software have been added to the map viewer here, Car Park 4. Okay, so that's that. But now we want to explore the apps, Arc Explorer and Arc Collector. But before we can do that, we need to change some options. And so the first thing I need to consider is I want this map to open in Arc Collector. So the first thing I want to do is actually disable the editing for all of these feature layers except for the points of interest, because I want it to be that the points of interest are the only things that are allowed to be edited. So I'll go to monorail and disable the editing. Pathways, I'll disable the editing. And I'll disable the editing also for all of the zones. Now that's done, I can save the map. Go to Content, and the first thing you need to do before setting something up to be accessible by Arc Collector and Arc Explorer, as well as any other apps for ArcGIS, is go to the feature layer for the web map. This feature layer, which is symbolized by a yellow sheet of paper with a marker on top, is the feature layer that's used within the web map. And so before we can edit the settings on the web map, we need to edit the feature layer settings. This is to make them available offline, which will be paramount if you're giving work to field workers that perhaps don't have online access at the time. So, in the overview options, we can ignore these for now, but are quite useful. For instance, data, you can visualize all of the different layers within a feature layer. For instance, I can visualize the monorail. This is its attributes table. Zone 3's attributes table. But let's visualize the points of interest attributes table. Now let's go to settings. If you scroll down, you can see this delete protection setting. This is especially useful because it stops other members of your organization or yourself accidentally deleting an item you'd rather have not deleted. Now, usually this isn't enabled, but in order to allow a feature layer to be accessed offline, you have to enable the sync button. Enable sync, disconnected editing with synchronization. That's so you can sync layers up to the cloud after you've connected to the internet again. But I'll explain what I mean by that. So if when you do enable it, you should have to save afterwards, but it's already enabled in this case, so I don't have to save. I can go back to the content now, and I can go onto the settings for the web map itself. Settings, and we can enable offline. By default it's not enabled, and by default this option here, the offline table with these offline options, isn't available until you enable the sync option on the feature layer that's contained within the web map. So I'll enable the offline mode and I'll go to manage areas. This is to set an area for which will be available offline, because you don't want to download an entire world map to your phone. So create area by clicking on this draw map area up here. There we go. We can change the neighborhood, the level of detail for the map. Let's change it to buildings, quite a detailed map. Click save, and there we have it, the new extent to which we can view, which will open in our map viewer. We can click an X here, and under normal circumstances you'd want to save this, but I've already done it, and so I don't need to save, and the option isn't there to do it. So let's go back to content. Now everything is set up for the Chester Zoo project that we've created. Sometimes this happens, sometimes the items don't load, so you just have to refresh the page. So now we want to view this web map on the apps of Explorer and Collector. Now you've enabled the options for your web map to be accessed by the different apps of Arc Online. You can use the apps. We will first demonstrate the apps of Explorer and Collector. Explorer, if I select it, is used simply for viewing your web maps. If a field collector has updated a web map, then it'll be updated on Explorer so long as you're connected to the internet. And let's select the map that we just made, the CZ web map. Notice here you've got some points that weren't on the map. These are markups and can be added to maps on Explorer to demonstrate certain things you might want to visually demonstrate on the map. You can share these markups to other people in your organization, and they can be quite useful. But that's all I'll say about Explorer. It's quite a basic tool. Next, we'll use Collector. So we'll select the Collector app, and we'll refresh the page to make sure we've got the current maps. So, here is the CZ web map that we had created before. The first thing we want to do is download a base map for this. So, let's download a new base map. Select the extent for the base map we want to download. That looks about right. Remember, we determined the extent in the options for the web map on the settings page. And now we want to choose the detail of this map. So how detailed should we have it? Let's have it up to building size. So let's download that. Notice it says the size at the bottom of the page there. Now we just have to wait for the map to download. Under normal circumstances, if you want to access this map offline, you'd turn the internet off. It's all set up to be accessed offline, but before you can do that, you need to download the base map, which is what we're doing right now. For this demonstration, I'm not going to turn my internet off. That's because I need to have the internet on in order to project my phone screen into the recording. But if the internet was turned off, it would work exactly the same way. It's just that you cannot sync new points that you've added until the internet is turned back on. I'll demonstrate what I mean by that. Now the web map has downloaded, so we can select it to open it up. Remember, we made these polygons and other features uneditable, so they can't be edited. So if I click on this plus button to add a new feature, collect new, click, then we have the options for all of the types for the points of interest. Now if we hadn't have made those other features uneditable, we would also have the option to create new polygons and lines. But we cannot, because we made them uneditable. And so let's go back onto the map view. These polygons are a bit obtrusive. I can't really see the base map with them on, so I'm going to click on these three dots and go to Layers, and I'll deselect these zones so I can see the map a bit more clearly. There we go. Now, let's zoom into a point on the map. Cedar House. I'm going to delete this point by clicking on the arrow in the bottom right hand corner there and clicking delete. Delete. And then I'm going to zoom out. I'll zoom into this building over here. And I'll click on the plus sign. I'd like to add a new building. Now, you can add a location by one of two ways. My location isn't being added very well because it can't find me. But in the lower left-hand corner, you could center on your location by clicking on that little man with the crosshairs next to him. That should find your location. You can connect external high-accuracy GPSs to your phone, which will use that GPS settings, which can have GNSS accessibility rather than purely GPS accessibility as with your phone. This means that the GPS accuracy will be higher and you can find yourself more easily. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to click on the map on the tab next to this box with two lines, and it will click on the map, and we'll select where we want our point to go, because I'm not even anywhere on this map. So I'll zoom into this building, and I'll click the center of that building, and so see it's added a point. If we go back to that tab with the box and two lines, then the longitude and latitude coordinates of that point have been added. I'm going to call this building Jaguar House. Click the tick to finish adding your feature. This comes up after you've added every feature. If you don't want to collect a new feature immediately afterwards, then you can click off the page by clicking on the map behind it, and it disappears. So, we've added a feature called the Jaguar House. Excellent. Once you've added features, removed features, or done any updates that you want to this map, you can click back. But before they appear on the WebMap, so let's go to the WebMap by clicking on the WebMap in the Contents page. On the Online service, open in Map Viewer. Let's see the edits that we just did. Let's get rid of these zones here. Notice that Cedar House is still there, and we don't have a point on this building. But if we sync our points that we created by clicking on the Sync button underneath the CSED web map in Collector, then the points will update in the web map. Notice now, when it loads, that in the web map, after this is synced, as the syncs have completed, a point for the Jaguar House has been created. But Cedar House is still here. It shouldn't be. And so what I'm going to do is just refresh the page. Now let's zoom back into where we were before. Get rid of these zones. Notice now that Cedar House has been updated with its delete function. It's no longer here, and the Jaguar House is. That's a small look at the Collector app. We will look more at the Collector app in future demonstrations.